Hey flower friends, it is Ask a Flower Farmer and it's your friend Lisa checking in here. And y'all look, I just love celosia babies. They were just carting off a bunch of them to plant them out in the garden, and I had to have like a photo shoot with them. I think celosia, look at those little roots. I mean the stems. I just find them to be the most amazing little growers. Amazing long-lasting flowers. Awesome. So those are celosias. And then I have to show you one more thing before we start. Look at these tomatoes. These are my sun gold tomatoes. I only grow 2 tomatoes, Big Beef and sun golds, because we just love them. They're disease resistant. If you have never grown sun gold, it's that little yellow, sweet cherry tomato. If you're trying to get a kid to like vegetables, that's a great one. Anyway, look at these. Started in the small block, but bumped up to the 2-inch block. And they're just, look at the roots that are already starting to come through. So soil blocking is an amazing way to start seeds. And if you're not aware of soil blocking, it just grows an amazing transplant without containers. You just use trays that you use for years and years. And we absolutely just love them. So before we get into our show, first up, if you've never been here before, I welcome you. My name is Lisa. I'm with the Gardener's Workshop. The Gardener's Workshop hosts this event. And I'm here till about 1 o'clock. And I'll do my best to answer the questions that you post in the bubble down below with question mark in it. That way I don't lose the questions as people sign on. So post your questions in the bubble with the question marks about anything to do with seed starting, cut flower growing, flower farming business, harvesting, cool flowers, growing up transplants, whatever you got. I'll do my best to try to answer that. And and I know that there should be probably lots of harvesting questions with cool flowers. So post those in there too. And while y'all are thinking up your questions and getting them posted, just a little bit of housekeeping stuff. So tonight I'm doing a live show at 8 p.m. inside of our phone app. If you're not familiar with our shop phone app, we do a gardening show. And tonight we're doing like a big old course extravaganza. And that's because our course spring sale ends tonight, y'all. I'm going to be, something I'm learning more and more in business. Even though I'm super familiar with all of our courses and how courses work and why they are a great piece of whether you're a gardener or a flower farm and business person, why courses really fill a niche amongst your resources and your tools. And I forget that not everybody understands how they work, why they work so well, and how many of them connect you to your instructors, like for the rest of your growing season or your career, right? So join me tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time inside the app, and I will be going through all of our courses are 15% off until tonight at midnight. You use the coupon code SAVE15 and you can learn more about it. You can go over right now to thegardenersworkshop.com after we're done and go over there and check out all the courses. But I'm going to be going through them tonight and just telling you a little bit about each one and what the deal is and who might be the person that's perfect to actually take that course. Now, if you don't have our shop app, you need to get it. It's free. Just go to your phone's app store, search Gardener's Workshop, download it. It's free, or you can actually comment app here and we'll DM you the actual link. Because we do 2 shows a week. We do one on Wednesday nights, and then we do a big one on Fridays at 12 noon. And guess what this Friday's theme is? Friday's show always has a theme. And this week, the theme is soil blockers. I'll be demonstrating all 4 of the sizes of soil blockers. That includes the small blocker, the large blocker, and the commercial versions, the Swift mini blockers. So you don't want to miss that. So if you're not a soil blocker yet person, you'll come to that show. We'll show you how it works and why it's just such a great way to start seeds. And that is all I have to say, y'all. And then let's see, we got a couple of questions going. So what's going on here on the farm? So we're finally having nighttime temperatures in the low 60s, even though I still see a couple of 50 nights in the near future. So we're getting all of our warm season tender annuals planted out in the garden, and they're doing really great. We're getting our cool flower garden is being harvested. I'm getting ready to go out and do a bunch of sweet pea harvesting. And so things are just really kind of busting loose here. And lastly, save the date for our once a year annual open farm and warehouse. And that happens June 28th. It's free and it's open to the public. I'm in southeastern Virginia, and people literally come from all over the country. It's kind of humbling for our little small city flower farm, the people that want to come here and just see it in action. And if you happen to be one of my students or any of our school students or a member of the Flower Farmer Club, you actually get a private early bird version of the open farm that's private, coffee with the instructors. And so you'll get an email about all that. And if you just so happen to buy a course today because they're on sale, one of our school courses, you'll be included with that. So let's see what our questions are here. So first off, do y'all like my background? That is a big canvas of one of the images that's off the front of my book, the Cut Flower Handbook. Those are all pro cuts, by the way. Those are all pro cut sunflowers, and totally love those. All right. Question 1, can you make a video of you harvesting sweet peas and post in the club or somewhere, please? First time growing them, and they seem short, but I read in Cut Flower Handbook, can harvest part of the vine also. Visual would be awesome. So it's so funny. I grew, sweet peas were one of the first flowers that I grew as a flower farmer 30 years ago almost now, and I didn't know that people cut the vines so the vine would have multiple stems on it, and then you could actually use it in a bouquet instead of having these little short fellas. There's uses for both of them. And so when I cut a vine, I tend to go almost all the way to the ground because that's where you want the next shoot to come from. So if I can do that, I will, but that doesn't always get to happen on my time. But we'll do our best to do that. But the bottom line is the Cut Flower Handbook tells you what stage to cut sweet peas because they need to be fully open. They really don't open anymore. And then if I have 2 or 3 openish flowers on a vine, then that's the one I cut because it's so beautiful to have all those trindles and all that other stuff. And so I'm doing something this year we haven't done in a really, really, really long time. Our sweet peas are not trellised. Probably the 3rd or 4th year I ever grew sweet peas, they didn't get trellised for the same reason these didn't. We're just busy doing other things. And sweet peas are not as big a picture for us now as they were way back in the beginning. They just aren't the lion's share of our garden. Anyway, what I learned 20 years ago is that sweet peas will grow into this amazing hedgerow, meaning they just grow up and they become this, if my arms are the outside of the sweet peas, they just create this hedge. And what I learned is that sweet peas tend to bloom more when the vines are this way instead of this way. And that just encouraged, we cut so many sweet peas from that hedgerow. So I'm doing the same thing this year. They haven't been trellised. It's really too late for me to try to trellis them now. And they're absolutely beautiful out there. So we'll see how I feel about it because now you have to bend over to cut them. But hopefully that helps you with your sweet pea harvesting. What months do you plant zinnias such as zowie and other fall colors for harvest in September? So the way you figure that out, and the Cut Flower Handbook really helps to guide you on this. It helps you to figure out when you have to plant by to get the flowers and before frost comes, right? And so I don't know how many days to harvest zowie is, but let's just guess and say 90 days from seed to harvest. So that means that it's going to take at least 90 days for it to grow up and start blooming. 90 days. So you'd want to add on some more time, like probably 15 to 30 more days to account for actually having time to harvest them, as well as the days are getting shorter in the fall, stuff slows down. And the other thing you need to think about with zinnias, growing them for the fall, the dew is heavier in the fall, that fuels mildew. We've learned to not rely so heavily on zinnias for the fall for that very reason. We still grow them, but we have a lot of other, straw flowers are amazing in the fall. Sunflowers, of course, in the right colors, which, this one, these are the bicolors. This one, that's the same. I don't know if you can see, This is the plum, totally love that one. And of course the chocolates. But we rely, and coxcomb is just a huge one in the fall. The orange and the gold and the red orange, oh my gosh, and the scarlet, all of them. They're just huge. So that's how you figure it out. What is it from seed to harvest? And then count back, and then give them a month, basically, so you have time to actually cut them. So for us, we typically try to get most of our third or fourth planting of annuals in by mid-July, probably, because that's when the days start getting shorter. So I hope that helps. How do you deal with that challenge that imported flowers are often cheaper than you can grow local? Yeah, so you don't even, I don't even know how to talk about this. So flowers typically, if you're selling, it depends on what market you're selling in. If you're selling to florists and supermarkets, yes, they're buying a lot of cheap flowers. They're buying low-ball flowers. So your challenge is to show them the difference. You're not going to talk them into what the difference is, because people are not going to pay you any more money because those flowers are local or not. They're looking at value, how long they last, and what sells. That's the bottom line. And so I never really worried about cheaper flowers or what they were doing with other stuff. I priced my flowers according to the market, meaning I did research and figured out what was being charged from other vendors that they would be buying from, and priced my flowers competitively, and then produced and delivered a much better product, better customer service, quicker customer service, all of those things that typically are not available on all those other outlets. And so especially with a lot of florists that are buying a lot of stuff online, they don't really get to talk to anybody. And so customer service is what hits it home, and I just don't even think about, you can't convince a customer. You have to show them. You only have to use words when they ask you questions. So that's kind of how that goes. I just sowed on the field sunflower seeds a few weeks ago. I haven't seen them germinate yet. We've had a lot of cool overcast days and some rain, so I'm wondering if it's not warm enough yet or if the birds got them. So this is a great example of why we do not direct sow sunflowers. We don't really direct sow any seeds in spring and summer. First off, I don't know where you are, sow and grow, but here for us, I'm in southeastern Virginia. I'm in zone 8A. Our typical last frost date is mid-April, so we're here at basically May 1st, right? I couldn't try to direct sow warm season seeds, which sunflowers are, for at least 2 to 3 more weeks, because even with and our air temperature is still cool at night, the temperatures are what warm the soil, and for warm season stuff to pop, they really need heat. So I would guess that they probably may have rotted, especially if you've had a lot of rain and it's cool. You don't want to plant seeds out in your garden until it's really hot outside and the soil temperature has also come up, because then what happens is the seeds, I talk about this in the Cut Flower Handbook, when you plant seeds or even a transplant earlier than the conditions that they want and like, they just sit out in the garden and just sit there, sometimes shiver and wait. And while they're waiting for their conditions to actually do something, all kinds of mess can happen to them. Varmints can eat them, birds can eat them, they can rot. There's just a lot of stuff, so I would guess that. And so we start sunflower seeds every week. That's one of the things I do in the Flower Farmer Club. Every Wednesday we have the sewing circle, and that's one of many things. So planting transplants is my secret to that. And sorry you're having trouble. Can you talk about stock? Zone 8A here in Texas. I fall planted and they are not consistently good. Early spring planted another round and they are better but still not very tall and very sporadic. Guidance, more fertilizer or less. Maybe need shade cloth help. So stock is a cool flower, cool season hardy annual. I'm in 8A. I think you said you are too. We don't fall plant it. Because what typically happens is we have crazy days in the middle of winter and the stock will grow up and try to bloom in the middle of winter, and there's no support out there yet for them, and they'll just fall. We take off the row cover if we had it on, and they're just laying there in the bed sideways, fully bloomed out. So we do not fall planted. That is one of the things that we are quick to get into the ground in very early spring, which means 8 weeks before your last spring frost. And so for us, that means mid-February. And we typically we lost all of our stock this year. We had a disaster out in our garden in deer and other things. And the stock typically blooms for Mother's Day. And it's one of the ones, so when we first starting seeds in January, the first seed we start is eucalyptus, right? Because it takes so long to grow up. So we do our eucalyptus, and the very next seed that I start is stock. And it's because I want to have nice sized transplants to put out in the garden at 8 weeks before my last frost. And we also pack them tight in the bed. I put 8 rows across. And of course it's going into beds that have had general purpose fertilizer added in it. Stock resents heat of any kind. Once it gets warm, they just won't grow up anymore. They stop elongating. They get really resentful in their behavior. So, you can try just using a general purpose, probably liquid fertilizer, but I find they do elongate as the weather starts to warm up. Every year I think, oh my gosh, the stock is all budded up, but it's only this tall. And then all of a sudden one day you go out there and they're this tall, So just be sure that they're getting enough moisture, that you're watering. And if you have any question about the nutrition, you could, put a soil soak would be the quickest delivery of nutrients of whatever liquid fertilizer that you use. And growing good stock takes practice. You have to find the sweet spot for when you should actually plant them for your region. I would guess you're probably very similar to me, that earlier is better than late. We plant 8 rows to a bed. We use hoops and row covers when we plant them, just so that they really get the best start and they can just hit the ground running so that they can be blooming for Mother's Day. So I hope that helps. My bells are stunted this year. Anything I can do to help them get some height? I have never had this problem before. They are a quarter of the typical size. And what's so interesting? There's a lot of people reporting this, and I've, in fact, am experiencing similar results here. I don't know where you are, but we had an incredibly dry fall, which is when we plant all of our cool flowers, most all of them, except for a handful like stock and straw flowers. We had a really dry fall and winter, and we've had a very dry spring, which means they need so much more irrigation than what most of us are used to and prepared to actually do. But I will say that bells, just like I was saying about stock, sometimes after it starts to actually heat up some. I mean, we've had a few warm days. Like today it's supposed to be 86, but it's still getting cool at night. If you can just get some of those 86-degree days going on, oftentimes that is what pushes them. Just be sure, as I mentioned for the stock, that you're irrigating or giving them water and that they have enough nutrition. But I think this year's been a real learning curve for me. We usually have so much more rain than we have. And I just came to, after 20 years of having great rain all the time, you tend to depend on it. And we did, and guess what? It didn't come this winter. So we just have some different issues this year, but I am hearing that all around. And also, it feels like spring is kind of coolish weather is lingering. You put cool with dry, and they don't have any reason to grow, right? So that would be my take on that. Last year, I didn't have any irrigation on our rows. Snaps and sunflowers did well, but zinnias and status seemed to be not as full. But do zinnia and status need that irrigation? So, all the flowers that you mentioned need moisture. And if you're not getting it by rain, and again, it's the whole same thing that I'm talking about. I think it's across the board. We just can't depend on, here where I am and in Virginia, what has classically happened here is we have had so much rain so often for the past decade at least, you never turned your irrigation on. Literally, you just never really needed to irrigate. And you just kind of get complacent with that, I think. I did. And so all of those flowers, zinnias, status, snaps and status are cool flowers. So they're cool season spring bloomers, right? And zinnias and sunflowers are throughout the summer. And for sure, they appreciate moisture. While the two of them, particularly sunflowers and zinnias, they'll take a lot of abuse, which makes us think they don't need it. But then what we quickly learn when they get moisture, like if it's raining a lot, you just see how much more they grow. So we just have to get back on setting up and structuring our irrigation. That's what I've done. Our irrigation is being set up on our farm this year like it hasn't been for years, so that we can just flip it, turn it on, and have everybody get water. And I think that we're going to see a really, really big difference. Should I pinch my foxglove? It's my first year growing them, and I overwintered and now. So, should I pinch my foxglove? It's my first year growing them, and I overwintered them, and now they're about 8 or 9 inches tall and shooting up the buds. So, I have never pinched foxglove. They tend to be very branchy on their own. And when I say branchy, not branchy like a zinnia that has a central stem with lots of branches, multiple shoots from the base of the plant. And that would also depend on which variety of foxglove you're talking about. There are different types of foxglove, which is digitalis. There's true hardy annual, which means they'll go from seed to bloom in about 16 weeks, which is 4 months, which is Foxy. Trying to think of the names of the others. Foxy's is the one that I grew for so many years. And then there's biennial versions. Those have to be in the ground longer, and I don't know. I wouldn't pinch either one of them. So I think you're good. Just be sure, as I've mentioned previously here on these other flowers, just be sure they're getting enough water and that it's nutritious enough. My foxglove, which is out on the outside of my fence where my dog can't get to it, because digitalis isn't just make dogs sick, it's digitalis, y'all. They can OD and cause tragedy with that. So we don't grow it because Tucker literally grabs plants and runs with them. So we no longer grow digitalis where a dog can get to it. So it's probably 36 inches tall. I see it outside of my kitchen window. So beautiful. That was a huge crop for Colonial Williamsburg for us. They bought every stem of digitalis because it's so fit. It's a native, right? And so hopefully Phoebe's Flower Farm, that will help you. I do not believe that you need to pinch. Are you using overhead sprinkler for your emergency irrigation needs? What a great question. Yes, and what a blunder that was. So if you only have like plants that are not budding, no blooms, no buds, you can overhead. And that I did actually overhead water 2 weeks ago. And there was just 1 or 2 cool flowers, amobium, one comes to mind, that had blooms on it, and they all turned brown, from getting wet. Overhead irrigation is not the same as rain. So if I were to overhead water, I would definitely not do it where there are blooms. And if you do it I would do it probably either in the morning before the heat of the day, because if you put water spots on your leaves and stuff and then you have really high heat, that can blister. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't overhead. And I'm just reminding myself by doing it in a case of emergency. It was just so dadgum dry. I mean, it's just ridiculous how dry it is. But I'm fixing that problem, and having a great irrigation system is fairly inexpensive and easy to do for the type of irrigation that farmers use. And I just recommend that that's one of the things I teach about in flower farming school, resources with that, because it changes everything. It changes. I mean, when I was out there dragging that hose around and trying to get the sprinkler and doing all this mess, and I thought, or Lisa, if you had done what you were supposed to do, which you haven't done now for years, you could just walk over to the spigot and turn it on, and everybody would get water. I mean, literally. So I've learned my lesson, y'all. So that's my take on that. All right, friends. We're about ready to wrap up, so I want to invite everybody again to our live show tonight. I will be going through all of our courses, just kind of giving the highlights of each one, but most importantly, kind of explaining why courses are so significant, particularly our schools. We have 5 schools, I think. We have Basics, Dave Dowling's Bulbs, Perennials, and Woodies, Steve and Gretel's Growing Cut Flower Crops in Hoop and Greenhouses, Jenny Love's Farmer Florist, and then Ellen Frost, Growing Your Business with Local Flowers. All 5 of those courses, and they're deep and wide. They are amazing resources and tools, but here's the thing that this courses is just one piece of the resources that a business person has. And what those courses bring is not only tried and true lessons and ways to do things, you have ongoing access to your instructor. And here's what I compare it to, because this is what I used to face, which led me to make the very first course. When I would go and speak to a room full of 500 flower farmers, right? You get up and give a program, and then you answer questions. And then there's 300 people that still have questions. Well, I can't privately email 300 people. I mean, there's just not, I run a business and nobody would have time to do that, right? So creating courses that have these ongoing communities of people, these private Facebook communities for students of this instructor, whether it's me, Dave, Jenny, Steve and Gretel, or Ellen, you have an ongoing community that you're a member of until the end of the internet, and you can tag your instructor. We actually have a TGW team member that swims the Facebook groups looking for questions that may have been asked that an instructor may have missed, to be sure that questions get answered. And that's the golden drop of courses. Not only do you get amazing information that you can look up and use anytime, all the time, but then if you got some question, you can ask your instructor that's related to their school topic. And it's just pretty dadgum amazing. And I just think the courses have kind of gotten out of control, crazy. I mean, there's so many courses now, right? But I want to say that what I see as the difference between the Gardener's Workshop courses and some courses, I'm not saying all of them, is we give you support beyond the course for our big schools. Now we have workshops that's not a part of it. Workshop is a kind of a short one and a short class, and it's pretty cut and dry. You learn and you have access to the workshops all the time to go back and look things up, but you don't necessarily have access to those instructors. But the big courses, especially because they're all about flower farming, it's all about business, right? So join me tonight if that spurs your interest. I would love to have you come tonight and ask questions about that, and I'll be going through it and just talking about just all the other benefits of these courses that you have unlimited lifetime access to. you know, as long as you have access to internet, you can get in and look at your course. So friends, hope to see you tonight inside the shop app at 8 p.m. And then on Friday, it'll be a soil blocking bonanza, y'all. I'll be demonstrating all the blockers and talking about why I choose which one I use, right? And so friends, until we meet again, and if you're in the Flower Farmer Club, I'll see you in an hour at the Sewing Circle inside the club. Ciao, y'all.